Okay, we're going to start by manipulating some basic shapes in Illustrator. So we're going to go over and we're going to do a tear off. So one of the cool things I like about Illustrator that Photoshop doesn't do is they have this ability to tear off a suite of tools. So I'm going to do a tear off here on my shapes. So I have a rectangle, a rounded rectangle, a circle, polygon, star, and the flare tool. I'm going to start with a rectangle. So whenever I create a shape, I have the option of manipulating the shape's stroke, the fill or content, or both. I'm just going to click and drag down and make a shape. So this shape consists right now of a stroke, which is black, and a fill, which is white. I go up to the upper left-hand corner. The shape is currently selected. I go up to the upper left-hand corner and I click into the fill, and I can choose a fill color for that shape. And then I close it. The shape is still selected. I go up and I can click and I can choose a stroke color for that shape. Now it might be harder to see the stroke because the stroke is really small right now. If I wanted to increase the size of the stroke, I can go to the stroke box and set the stroke and make it much thicker. Okay, so I can do this two ways. One is to draw the shape and then change its settings, or change the settings first. So if I grab my black selection tool and I want to deselect the shape, I just click away from the shape and deselect it. So let's say that I want to make the next shape and I already have an idea of what color and fill I want to use. I go up to the fill box and I'll choose a certain color. I'll choose blue, and then let's say that I want this shape to have a certain stroke. I click and I'll choose a certain stroke color, and then I can choose a rectangle, rounded rectangle, etc. I'll choose the circle tool and I'll draw another circle, and it's going to have those settings. Okay, now I can create a shape that has a fill, a stroke, or both. So both of these shapes have a stroke and a fill. I can make one of these shapes just have a stroke or a fill. So if I select this shape here and I decide I don't want to have the shape have a stroke, I go up to the stroke box and I set it to none, and there's no longer a stroke on this shape. If I select the shape is selected with the black selection tool. I go back up and I'll set the stroke, choose a stroke color on that shape, and then choose a stroke dimension or size. And now I've reapplied the stroke. Let's say that I don't want the shape to have a fill. With the shape selected, I'll go up and I'll choose the none symbol, and now the shape no longer has a fill. So the shape has the potential for having a stroke, a fill, or both. Okay? Now, in addition to that, when I have my shape, I'm going to look at selecting my shape. So with the black selection tool, I click on the shape and it selects the whole shape. Once I've selected that shape, I can manipulate it. Now, there's a couple of different ways to select shapes. One is to simply click right on the shape. The other is to trap select, which is to take your black selection tool and bring it over a portion of the shape, and that will select the whole shape. Now, this shape's a little bit differently, and when you want to be more precise, you'll get used to selecting the outline or the path of the shape. Now this shape is empty inside. If I click inside of the shape, I will not be able to select it because there's currently no fill. I know that there's a control point in the center. If I can find that control point, that will select the shape. But otherwise, I have to click on the edge to select this particular shape. And so one of the things that you want to get used to is the idea of stroke, fill, and none, and then selecting shapes. Let's look at selecting shapes some more. What I can do is I can trap select both of these shapes by trapping over the shape and selecting them like so. I'm going to click away. And I can also select both of these shapes by shift clicking. If I hold down the shift key, click on one shape, and then while holding down the shift key, click again, I can select the other shape, and then I can click away. What's the advantage of selecting more than one shape? Well, let's say I want to do the same thing to both shapes. I'm going to shift click and select both of the shapes. I can resize them, right? I can rotate them. Now with the same selection handle, I can do a number of operations. One, if I grab it from the corner, hold down the shift key, I can resize it. If I bring my cursor outside of the edge, I can rotate it, and I can do all that inside of that edit. Now I'm going to undo that, Control Z to undo. Control Z is your friend. Remember, whenever you get stuck, that you can always undo. I'm going to grab my selection tool, click away from the shapes. So that's my standard selection tool. In addition to that, I can also go up to select and choose all, and that will just select everything on the screen. So you have to use that with a little bit of caution. Now, that's my main selection tool, the black selection tool, and the idea is that when I want to edit an object, I want to select it. I want to click on that object, and then I want to modify it. Let's look at the direct selection tool, the white anchor, the white arrow tool. So the idea with this is that I can select individual components. Remember that when you're working in Illustrator, the shapes are comprised of lines and nodes. When I click on the shape with the black selection tool, you can see the corners of the shape. There are little white nodes, and those are part of the way the shape is created. Actually, while I'm in here, there's another little thing that they've created in here, which is interesting, is that offset inside of the little nodes is a little circle, and I can click that, and I can round the corners of my shape. So there's already a rounded rectangle tool in here, but this is just another little added feature that they threw in there, the ability to round those corners of a shape. Start with a square and then round it. I'm going to click away. But let's look at the direct selection tool. So the idea with the direct selection tool is I need to click on the path. And then once I click on the path, I have nodes, and I can click into those nodes and begin to manipulate the shape based on those nodes, okay? And that's the mechanics behind Adobe Illustrator. Notice that I get a set of handles. These are called the Bezier handles, named after the French mathematician Pierre Bezier, who did work at the Renault car company and created this system of mathematics that's used for programs like Adobe Illustrator. I can grab the handles and I can stretch and adjust the handles, or grab the node itself and manipulate that. And the same here is I can grab those nodes and I can reposition them, and I can create very sophisticated shapes using this system of lines and nodes. And what you'll notice that where the shape is square, the nodes will often be square or right angle, and where the shape is curved, the shape will the nodes will be straight. Okay, I can select multiple nodes with the direct selection tool by clicking into a node and then holding down the shift key and selecting additional nodes, and now I can manipulate all those nodes simultaneously. I can also trap select to select a number of nodes and manipulate those simultaneously, and then I can click away to deselect. So one of the easiest ways to find the nodes is to find the outline, click on the path on a place where you're sure there aren't any nodes, and then click into the node to actually select it. All right, I'm going to delete these shapes and make another rectangle. And I'm going to grab that direct selection tool. And what I want to do is select those nodes. So notice that the shape is all selected right now. So what I need to do is click away from the shape and deselect it, then click on the path, and then I can select an individual node and manipulate it, okay? So what we're doing right now is we're looking at how to create a basic shape. The fact is that when you're working in Illustrator, all the shapes are consisting of a vector system of lines and nodes, and how to select shapes, how to select individual shapes, how to select groups of shapes. And then the idea is that I can also select the individual components of shapes with the direct selection tool. Every shape in Illustrator has the potential for a stroke, a fill, or both.